Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Rock the Motor City Madmouth, and yes, he's the three of us, okay? And that suits me fine tonight. I'm pleased to be joined by Steve Balestrieri. Steve, welcome back.
Thank you. And it's great to be here as always. I look forward to talking with you two guys. And yeah, we won't have to fight for mic time tonight.
No, this will be a very simple, straightforward broadcast. Love having the other guests that we bring on here, but tonight it's the three of us, and that suits me fine, right, Mel Farr Jr.?
Absolutely.
All right, folks, just so you know, this broadcast is simulcast. You can find it on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. And to see all our videos, go ahead and subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you want to hear it, you're in a bus station, you're in a doctor's office, wherever you're at, you can also do so via Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast. And for that matter, it's also on the South Florida Tribune website, which is www.southfloridatribune.com. Well, we have a pretty interesting show tonight, a very, very lighthearted one. And I thought since there's so much coaching changes going on that we don't have a lot of final ideas on right now, we're going to do something a little bit different for all three of us. Ever heard of Rocky Balboa and Rodney Dangerfield, Steve and Mel?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I was a big fan of Rodney back in the day.
Well, we're going to go ahead and tie a couple of quarterbacks to those names. And so I encourage you folks to go ahead and listen to this broadcast and watch it, because we have two very identifiable quarterbacks that are currently in the Final Four right now as we head toward championship week. And Rocky Balboa goes to Joe Burrow, age 25, Cincinnati Bengals. And I'll tell you one thing, I always love the Rocky films, but what Joe Burrow had to endure against the Tennessee Titans with 9 sacks, and they still won the football game, and he still managed to throw for 348 yards. If that wasn't good enough, okay, the previous meeting on January the 2nd against Kansas City, 34-31, he was sacked a total of 4 times, but had 4 touchdowns and ended up amassing 446 yards. And his primary target was Jamar Chase, who caught 11 passes, 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. So here you have it, okay? You got 4 sacks against Kansas City, 9 against the Titans, and let's just date it back a little bit more. On Sunday, December 26th, against the Baltimore Ravens, Joe, 37 for 46 for a franchise record, 525 yards and 4 touchdowns, and was sacked 3 times. So you talk about a franchise record. So here's the thing. The guy has been sacked 16 times the past 3 games that he's played in. And, you know, when I remember when the Bengals made their choice, who they were going to bring alongside of him, they had the choice between Jamar Chase, who was a first-round pick, 5th overall, his teammate at LSU, the wide receiver, who, by the way, has had a pretty good year in his own right, with 81 receptions for 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns. Or they could have gone ahead and protected Joe Burrow with Penei Sewell, the tackle out of Oregon, who was picked by the Detroit Lions 7th overall, and he's 6'5", 331 pounds. So there you have it. So why don't you, is that an appropriate name, Steve Balestrieri, for Joe Burrow, calling him Rocky?
It's funny when you mention Joe Burrow as Rocky and how many times he got sacked against the Titans. The scene that came to mind from all the Rocky movies, cut me, Mick. Because he was taking a beating out there. Now, some of that I thought was self-inflicted. I thought there was several times when he was holding the ball too long. But when you talk about a young guy in his 2nd season who, I mean, he's facing the number 1 team in the AFC on the road, you know, in the playoffs, he hung in there, he delivered. And I thought he acquitted himself really, really well in that football game. Now, he did hold the ball a lot. So, you know, this weekend, this is something that they'll have to drill in his head. Because a lot of times, if you hold the ball too long, you know what can happen. You know, you can get the strip sacks, and Kansas City's awfully good at that. So, but, you know, and I think Rocky Balboa is a nice if you, like you said, lighthearted lead in for him, because he is the young guy who hasn't had a shot. He's not a club fighter by any stretch of the imagination, but he's the guy that's vying for that championship.
Well, that's amazingly enough, the Bengals won 19-16. And I don't think any of us saw that upset coming whatsoever. But think about Joe Burrow for a moment. And I keep mentioning it every episode that we have. The guy is on house money. Okay. And I'll always remember what he says. Cincinnati doesn't have a big nightlife. We're not getting COVID-19. And you know what? I keep defending him every single time. Say it all you want, and those Bengals don't care what you say, as long as they're playing football and the other 28 teams are sitting home, it doesn't make a lick of difference. So, with that said, Mel, would you say that Joe Burrow and Rocky are definitely a good match?
Yeah, I mean, there's no quit. There's no quit in Rocky, and there's obviously no quit in this kid. And you had to be impressed with this kid after he transferred, from Ohio State, because he didn't get an opportunity to play there, and the things that he was able to accomplish down there at LSU, and then to become the #1 overall draft pick. And he just seems like a good kid. I lived in Cincinnati for a while. I lived down there for about 4 years, and those are some diehard fans. I can tell you, the people that I worked with, because there's no other professional sports team there other than the baseball team,
Right.
which they're crazy about the baseball team as well. But football, they live and die those Bengals. I mean, I got a good buddy of mine, one of my kids' godparents. He played for the Bengals. He's still down there. He's in the front office down there. So, I'm happy, because at least they've been to the dance. One thing about Michigan, us from Detroit, we don't know what that is like. They've had the opportunity to experience it, but he's an impressive kid. You look at him, he might hold on to the ball a little bit longer, but it's because he's trying to make plays. He's not the most fleet of foot guy, but obviously he knows what he's looking at when he looks out there across the field and looks at that defense, and he's trying to make plays. He's holding on to the ball because he's trying to make plays. Now, he's going to have to be careful about that, because those hits do eventually start to take a toll on you. The rules are a little bit better now, where linemen, defensive line can't fall on top of you. Now they got to kind of fall off to the side. But every now and then, something happens. One of those big 350-pounders might fall on top of him. So he just got to be careful and get rid of the ball quick, play smart, and who knows what can happen.
Yeah, I just like him overall. I just love his personality. I really do. I mean, this kid here is exactly what you want in a franchise quarterback. He doesn't come across as cocky, just a bit low-key confidence. And I like that. Now, when you talk about Cincinnati being a good town, yes, they've certainly loved the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Bearcats football team has had some success in recent years under the guidance of Luke Fickell. And don't even forget about their basketball team for a long time as well. So, what they do have in Cincinnati, more power to them. And I got to tell you, many years ago, I used to work for Reds View magazine out in Cincinnati. So I got to know those folks there, and I know them really well. So, I love Joe Burrow. I really do. We'll get to predictions a little while. And, how do you not pull for a guy like him? But, yeah, there's no question that every time I looked at those staggering number 16 sacks, Rocky Balboa was the only thing I could think of to draw that.
Well, and the impressive thing is, like, when a quarterback gets sacked that many times, a lot of times you'll see them, they get that kind of happy feet in the pocket, and they're looking for a way to get out of there maybe early. He wasn't doing that. He was staying cool in the pocket. He was, like Mel said, he was looking downfield the whole time, looking to make a play, and he never got flustered. I thought that his poise was really impressive in the game, and it has been, especially down the stretch. So, you have to be impressed with what you've seen out of him, and that's like you said, that's a team playing with house money. I think the Chiefs are favored and probably should be, but I wouldn't count them out this weekend.
Well, think about it for a moment. Okay, Zach Taylor even went on record saying, if I were in it with any other team, I probably would have been fired after 2 years. I think that's the average shelf life anyways. And I hate to make these comparisons, but I'm going to do it anyways. We all know that the Dallas Cowboys had Michael Irvin, They had Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman as their triplets. And now Cincinnati slowly but surely is formulating their own with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, and Jamar Chase. And a quiet, easygoing coach with Zach Taylor, who gives Joe Burrow all the latitude to do what he wants. I like what they're doing there. I really do. So on to the Rodney Dangerfield side of the equation, one that we're all too familiar with. Okay, that guy by the name of Matthew Stafford. Now, mind you, Burrow is age 25 and Matthew Stafford is age 33. Let me break down his numbers real quickly. In 2021, throws for 4,886 yards, 41 touchdowns against 17 interceptions. Going into the season, he was 0-3 in the playoffs. This year, he's 2-0. And he actually beat Kyler Murray and Tom Brady. And I really enjoyed seeing that photo of Stafford embracing Tom Brady over in Tampa. I think that was neat. If you go to Matthew's numbers, you got career games, 182 games, 49,995 touchdown yards versus 323 touchdowns. We know he has that gunslinger mentality. So I definitely feel that Matthew Stafford deserves the Rodney Dangerfield. I don't get any respect. Will that change right now? Mel, what do you think?
I mean, who that plays for Detroit gets respect. The Lions don't get respect. I mean, we don't get respect there as fans. He had to leave. Most players have to leave in order to gain some respect. And most players do leave. They get out of there, except for very few. It's going to be interesting. They've had a very difficult time. It seems that Shanahan has had McVay's number in this game. I think they've won the last 6 in a row. I think
Right.
won 7 out of 9 or 7 out of 10, some number like that.
Well, they've won 6 in a row. You're right on target there, Mel. I mean, the 49ers have a 6-game winning streak against the Rams. That's all there is to it.
And I can go back to, when I was playing and it was in the playoffs and we split with San Francisco. We beat them there. They beat us at our place. And in the NFC Championship game, we went up to San Francisco to play them in the NFC Championship game. It was our 3rd time playing. So, this was the deciding, obviously the one that was going to decide who was going to go to the Super Bowl. And they had our number. We thought we had their number up there, but they had our number that particular day. And we had to, it was a tough road for us to get in the playoffs. But, I've been listening to all the pundits talk and I'm listening to Sean McVay. Kyle Shanahan, he's kind of a little cocky little dude. And I really feel he believes that he has Sean McVay's number. And, they beat him twice already this year. The San Francisco had to win, if I'm not mistaken, to get in. That knocked New Orleans out. And, they've gone on a heck of a run. The deciding factor, obviously, is going to be Jimmy G and how well he plays, but they do a very good job of protecting Jimmy G. The last time they played, I think they only threw the ball 19 times, or the first time he played, they threw the ball, he dropped back 19 times. So Shanahan has so many different ways to run the football. And that's what he really wants to do. They really want to run the football. He kind of takes it out of Jimmy G's hand, where Sean McVay, he kind of wants to run the football, but really he runs to set up the pass, to set up the play action game, the big chunk yardage downfield. And that's what they got Matthew Stafford for. The key is going to be whether or not Matthew Stafford eliminates some of the mistakes that he's prone to make, which is, obviously turning the ball over or putting the ball on the ground if he tries to get outside the pocket or buy a little extra time. But it's tough, man. I didn't pick them the last week to win. I'm pretty sure I did not pick them, even though I thought it would be tough. I didn't pick them to win, and they look very good. And so against Tampa Bay. So that defense is tough. I think Matthew Stafford has an opportunity to redeem himself. There's no question about it, and gain some respect.
Okay, that was my next question, Mel. Thanks. Do you feel that Matthew Stafford has gone a long way to shake that Rodney Dangerfield, where now he's going to get the respect where beforehand he didn't have it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody saw him. Nobody, maybe other than on Thanksgiving Day, but people really didn't see Matthew Stafford play. Now, some of the games that he has played in prime time, he's done some boneheaded things with the pick sixes and so forth and so on. I mean, there's a group of people. Obviously, Sean McVay was very high on him, and there's some people that love Matthew Stafford. It depends. Let's see what he does this week. Let's see if he wins this game this week. If he's able to take control of this game, make some big plays, take advantage of what Sean McVay is going to, the positions that Sean McVay is going to put him in, and let's see if he takes advantage of those opportunities. Because we know the thing with Jared Goff is he'd have opportunities, and you see the same thing with Jimmy G. Shanahan will dial up the perfect play, but the ball is not, it's too high or too low or whatever the case may be. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Matthew Stafford seems to have a good feel for the game. He made some great throws last week against Tampa Bay, bringing them back. So after you thought the game was over and to come back and do what they did, he made some great throws. I don't know what they were doing defensively for Tampa Bay, but he made some big time throws. And there's not a lot of guys that can, in that type of situation, can handle that kind of pressure and make those type of throws, other than the 4 guys we were watching that particular day, probably.
Well, amazingly enough, he made a living with the Lions being Mr. Comeback. Here, though, he picked a good moment against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that was probably favored in this game to repeat the defending champions. And yeah, that throw to Cooper Kupp, sending up that field goal. I guess you want to talk about Hollywood endings, at least that day, he certainly had it. But Steve, go ahead. Where do you want to go with this? So does Matthew Stafford deserve the Rodney Dangerfield distinction? And is he close to getting rid of it?
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to pull up in his boat like in the Caddyshack movie. So, that's a good Rodney moment there. But yeah, he's gone a long way of dispelling some of that, the criticism that he has gotten in the past. I mean, he's looked really good 2 games in a row. And, I thought Tampa's defense was really going to give them a lot of problems. And that first half, they were just eating them up. And then in the second half, his players around him started fumbling the ball left and right. That's what allowed Tampa to come back. And, when Tampa tied it up, I was thinking that they were going to win the football game. And then for Stafford to make that throw to Cooper Kupp, that was clutch right there. That was big time clutch. I mean, you're on the road. You just lost a 24-point lead, and everything's going against you at this point for him. And that was a beautiful throw too, right on the money, and set them up for the win. I think that was huge for him. I don't know if it completely got the monkey off his back, because, that was the divisional game. This will be the big one going against the 49ers. But like Mel was saying, I like the Rams offense in this one, because I think if that 49ers defense has a weakness, it's their boundary corners. And, the Rams have the players that can take advantage of that.
Well, amazingly enough, we did a show on Stafford and Goff recently. So I almost feel like this whole thing is still playing out as we speak, as we lead toward Championship Sunday. And let's face the reality, no matter what happens with Stafford, he's not, if he continues to play a maximum of 2 football games, he gets to sleep in his own bed in LA. So we don't have to worry about that. So that, therefore, you take away the travel. I want to throw a couple did you knows out there before we wrap up the show. Number one, okay, there's only 2 teams in the championship era that are undefeated, okay, in the championship era for conference games, excluding the Houston Texans. Do you know who those teams are?
2 teams are undefeated?
Yeah.
Well, I would guess, since we're talking about it, I would guess San Francisco is probably one of them.
I'm talking about the conference championship games. Now,
that's what I'm saying, in the conference championship game.
And I'll throw a little hint your way because this one really doesn't count.
Cincinnati too, right?
Well, okay, there you go. But Houston is undefeated because they never played in one. But I'm not tricking you there, okay? But hey, this is some information. We want to make sure our listeners and viewers have a chance to learn some. But yes, Cincinnati's one of them at 2-0. You know the other team? The New York Giants are 5-0 in conference championship games. And Cincinnati is 2-0. And you know what? And to make it even more interesting in this tournament, the two times they've won, they've placed the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl 16 at the Pontiac Silverdome. Then they won another one here.
I was there.
Yeah, were you?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually
Way up top. But I was
so
there.
I guess when you talk about some ironic did you knows, and things really go full circle with this show here tonight. Here we have it, a Final Four. You got Cincinnati, San Francisco, LA, and Kansas City.
The second Super Bowl between the 49ers and the Bengals was the John Candy game.
Was it?
That was the John Candy game when they were backed up. I think they were on their 8-yard line at the 2-minute warning. And that's when they went to the TV timeout and they were so close to the end zone. Joe Montana saw John Candy in the the end zone seats there, and he made a big deal of it. And I remember seeing a clip after several years afterwards. Harris Barton was one of the 49ers offensive linemen. I think he might have even been a rookie that year. But he was a young guy. He was still very early in his career. And he was like, we were all hyped up, the 2-minute warning, and Joe's making a big deal. Hey, there's John Candy. And he was like, and right then we started looking at each other. And I think he said it was Randy Cross that looked at Harris Barton and said, Joe isn't fazed at all by this. We're going to win. And he said, and they looked over and the Bengals defense was watching Montana, and they were they had a look on their face like, uh-oh.
Well, amazingly enough, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe Ken Anderson was the quarterback for the Bengals, right? During that first one against Joe Montana. And wasn't Montana
Boomer was the second one.
Right. Okay. So there you go. So now Joe Burrow has a chance to join Boomer Esiason and Ken Anderson as a player to go ahead and lead the Bengals to the world. Just, it's amazing how some of these stats come full circle. We have a Final Four, and yet Kansas City is probably expected to hopefully potentially get there. We'll get to predictions in just a moment. So, so I guess when we put it all in perspective, what do you think, guys? Do you think we've definitely hit it pretty well? Rocky Balboa against Rodney Dangerfield this week?
Well, you had me going there when you first said that. I mean, because you were like, yeah, we're going to be talking about Rocky Balboa and Rodney Dangerfield. And I was like, I have no idea where he's going with this.
Well, come on, Steve, you've been doing this with me a long time. When have you ever really figured out what I was doing with this thing anyway, right? Except you're a true pro and you trust me to do the right thing. And I thank you for the faith you instill. But you know what? I've been in this business for 42 years. And if I have a boring show, shame on me. And when I have great people working with it, it's that much better. But yeah, so here you have it, folks. Rocky Balboa and Rodney Dangerfield featuring here in championship weekend. So as we put a button on this show, I'm going to ask my two partners tonight to come up with predictions, and I'll come up with them as well. So with that said, okay, let's go ahead. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. Mel Farr, tell me who you got.
As much as I like how Cincinnati has been playing, you like the physicality of that team. You know what they had to go through playing in the conference that they played in, that you had to be physical, you had to be tough when you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers and you're playing the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Kansas City's on a mission. I think they have bad taste in their mouth from last year. And I think that they are playing with purpose. And I think that Kansas City will win that game.
Give me a score.
Score. It's a great question. I'll go. There hasn't been much defense played with these teams lately, particularly in the fourth quarter than the last 2 minutes. I think Cincinnati's defense is a little bit better, but I'll go 34-21
in favor of the Chiefs.
The Chiefs, yes.
Okay, now let's talk about LA against San Francisco.
Man, this is a tough one, I tell you, because it just seems like Shanahan has all the answers. here we're trying to go, and I know that's in McVay's head right now. Or Shanahan might be living free right now in McVay's head. He probably can't even go to sleep right now thinking about, he hasn't beat this guy. They're buddies and so forth and so on. They go way back. They've been on coaching staffs together. I think this is the time the Rams get over the hump. I'm going to go with the Rams, and I'm going to go with the Rams 28-24.
All right, Steve, you're up next.
Yeah, I like Kansas City in this one. I think, if you look back at last week's game, I thought the Chiefs defense, the thing that really hurt them was when Josh Allen started to scramble. And that opened up a lot of avenues for them. I much as I like Joe Burrow, he's not that kind of a guy. So I think Kansas City's defense will play better this week. But I think it's going to be close. I look for a higher scoring game as well. I think it'll be a, one score game. I like Kansas City in this one, 35-27.
Fair enough. Okay.
And then the Rams, all week I've been reading about, the Niners have beaten the Rams, 6 times in a row and all this. And I go back to the 85 Patriots team that hadn't won in Miami in, I think it was 15, 16 years. And they usually were blown out when they were going down there. They went down there in the AFC Championship game to play against the Bears, and they beat Miami 31-14. I think the Rams solved the puzzle this week. I think they win 34-20.
Okay. All right. I'll throw mine out there for whatever they're worth. All right. I'm actually going to go with Cincinnati to win this one 31-28. There may not be any nightlife in Kansas City either, but there's an awful lot of barbecue out there. And even though Arrowhead will be loud, I don't know. I'm riding the Joe Burrow Kool-Aid, and I'm really rooting for the guy to get there. It would be really neat to see him finish the job. So 31-28, Kansas City. I'm sure you guys probably be right, but I don't care if I am right. I won't stop talking next week. That's for sure. Not that I do anyways. As for the other one, LA against San Francisco, I'm going to go 29-21 or 28-21 in favor of the Rams. So I'm predicting a Super Bowl between the Bengals and the Rams. And yes, for those folks out in Cincinnati, once upon a time, the Cincinnati Reds and the Dodgers used to be in the same division, but it'll be interesting to see if these two football teams are connected in the Super Bowl. And by the way, they'll still be playing in LA anyway. So, what can I tell you? This has been an awful lot of fun. Just the three of us tonight talking about tying two folk heroes in Hollywood to two quarterbacks that have had fine stories. And we'll just see how it all plays out. So meanwhile, with that said, Steve Balestrieri, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I write for PatsFans.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and all that social media stuff. I also write as a national security columnist about military and politics for 1945.com.
All right, Mel, you're up.
Yeah, I'm reaching all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn at Mel Farr Jr. Email address melfarrjr@gmail.com. Find out what we have going on here in Atlanta and also in Detroit at melfarr.org.
Very good. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, and I'll say it again, the video portion of this broadcast is on the YouTube channel, the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please subscribe, and then you'll be able to get all the videos and the alerts as they are posted. If you want to hear the audio portion of the show, you can do so on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts, or you can access it to the website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find us on Twitter at Tribune South. And if you want to email us, feel free to do so at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Once again, Mel, Steve, two of my favorite people, my buddies, and I always enjoy every opportunity we get to spend working together. And I can't think of two better people to work with than you guys. So I know we're going to have a lot of fun over the weekend. being able to watch the football. I'm certainly holding on to the sheet to see whether I eat crow or whether I don't, although who cares? I'm still looking for some good football over the weekend. We'll resume some episodes of the coaching search as we get more information available. But meanwhile, it's neat to take a break from the coaching situation and bring back Rocky Balboa and Rodney Dangerfield in a much different manner. So now that you've heard the show, now you understand where the connections that are at the, so, but meanwhile, on behalf of Steve Balestrieri, Mel Farr Jr., my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. And folks, I want to end this on one note, okay? Please be careful with COVID-19, okay? This thing isn't going away. And I want to dedicate this show to my Aunt Judy, who we just had the anniversary of her 1 year passing, who passed away for COVID-19. And I love my Aunt Judy. She's always been my hero and somebody I really think dearly of as well. So please take this virus serious. I'm sure everybody at some point or another has been connected to it at some point. We hope that everybody takes the necessary precautions. But once again, enjoy the football, and thanks very much for joining us once again on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Good night, everybody, and have yourself a great weekend.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.